Welcome to The Explainer. Today we've got a truly fascinating document to unpack together. We're looking at the Servas Blue Paper 2026. Now, right off the bat, I want to clarify that this isn't just another dry, bureaucratic organizational memo. Not at all. It is a highly pragmatic, incredibly near-term roadmap for modernizing an 80-year-old peace organization. Servas has this absolute powerhouse legacy of connecting people across borders, but to keep thriving in the 21st century, well, it needs to evolve. And the brilliant framing of this entire document is exactly that: evolution without disruption.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at exactly why this evolution is so absolutely crucial. Think back to 1945. The World Service was originally built for was entirely focused on rebuilding trust between former World War II combatant nations, and it was highly effective for that era. But today, the tension zones have completely shifted. We're dealing with massive, large-scale friction between Russia, China, and the West. We've got incredibly complex cross-border conflicts across Africa, and deep divisions impacting self-determination movements, like the Kurdish population, who are still dealing with the fallout of borders drawn a century ago. The whole shape of global conflict has mutated, which visually justifies exactly why the organization's methods for building peace absolutely must evolve to meet the tension right where it lives today.
And this brings us to a rather stark demographic reality facing the organization. When we look at the numbers, 60% of the membership is over the age of 60, while the 18 to 40 demographic, that makes up just 15%. Plus, the data shows that the number of active hosts has barely grown since its peak way back in 1992, and the financial reserves are sitting at roughly 452,867 Swiss francs. Now, a lot of organizations might look at that data, sound the absolute alarm, and view it as this pessimistic one-way decline. But the Blue Paper deliberately, and I think brilliantly, pivots away from that kind of panic.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this document completely reframes that aging membership data. There's a great quote here from Richard Weaver where he points out that Servas has actually carried a preponderance of older members for as long as he's been involved. He notes that this isn't necessarily a terminal decline, but rather a natural life cycle pattern. That is a massive shift in perspective, right? It takes demographic data that usually causes a crisis and reframes it into a natural cycle that just needs to be managed better. It literally turns a pessimistic metric into an optimistic opportunity. So if we accept that it's a natural cycle, the entire organizational goal shifts. It's no longer about frantically trying to stop a decline. Instead, the new mission is to design the conveyor belt. Think about the human life cycle model for a second. In your 20s, you're idealistic, you're traveling, you've got time. But through your 30s and 40s, well, careers take off, families grow, and suddenly your free time drops to zero. Then, by your 50s and beyond, kids move out, retirement hits, and you return with this renewed capacity. The Blue Paper emphasizes that we need distinct engagement pathways for every single one of these stages. We need to give people ways to stay lightly connected during those crazy busy middle years, so they effortlessly ride that conveyor belt and return rather than just falling off the radar entirely.
To really grasp the spirit of this pivot, we actually need to look back to the founder himself, Bob Lutweiler. Before he passed, he openly expressed his discomfort, saying Servas had drifted toward becoming a cheap housing program for the middle class. And hey, we all love a budget-friendly trip, for sure, but that was completely detached from genuine peace activism. His original vision was this robust work, study, travel system, where just passing through was only one small piece of the puzzle. So the Blue Paper isn't some jarring new disruption. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a highly pragmatic return to his original foundational vision.
Which leads us directly to a vital new definition for the modern era: the seeker. What does a member of this evolved organization actually look like? Well, seekers are active participants who bring peace into everyday life through meaningful, local actions and real relationships. And the Blue Paper is crystal clear about what a seeker is not. They aren't passive observers just looking to crash on a free bed, and they definitely aren't imported ideological activists bringing heavy, disruptive political protests to a host's front door. This entire pivot is rooted in this renewed, active, yet completely approachable human identity.
To actually empower these seekers, the authors make a really brilliant strategic choice. They prioritize action over governance debates. We all know how easily organizations can get completely paralyzed arguing over structural bylaws, right? Well, the Blue Paper explicitly sets all those complex, long-term governance overhauls, like the whole hybrid membership model debate, aside. It shelves them for a future vision document. Instead, it focuses 100% on actionable, near-term programs that we can start building right now, today.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what that action looks like in practice. The Servas Peace Builders Academy. This is a super clear pipeline for real-world impact. It starts with a hybrid 100-hour curriculum running about 6 to 8 weeks. Once we do the global rollout and pilots, the graduates emerge as certified peace builder educators. And here's where the magic happens. It creates this massive multiplier effect through grassroots homeschooling. So members will literally share conflict resolution practices right there in living rooms during their ordinary hosting and traveling stays.
The timeline for this rollout is already firmly on the calendar. The global pilots are launching in Paris in 2028, and they plan to expand to the USA, India, Argentina, and Kenya by 2033. But there is a very strategic, absolute mandate built into this. The organization cannot afford to wait years to reach the places that actually need this the most. So the Blue Paper explicitly mandates that at least one conflict-adjacent region must be included in that very first rollout cycle. It's a huge, tangible commitment to going exactly where the tension is.
Right alongside the Academy, the Blue Paper introduces these brand new SI social group partnerships. Now, these are operational working relationships with aligned organizations. Think refugee centers or ecological farms. But look at how this breaks down. To be an official partner, a specific peace component is absolutely required. And on the governance side, these are purely operational. They don't get voting rights at the General Assembly. If a group just wants standard volunteers without the peace stuff, no problem, they remain a general listing. This keeps the partner program strictly, explicitly aligned with the core peace mission. So what does this active peace building look like on the ground? It's a simple 3-step process. First, a member browses these aligned partners on Servas Online. Second, they reach out and propose a stay that explicitly includes a peace element. Third, they integrate that session into what the partner is already doing. For example, say a Peace Academy graduate travels to Kenya to volunteer at an ecological farm. While they're there doing the farming, they also facilitate a dedicated alternative to violence session for the local community. It completely weaves the peace mission right into the everyday fabric of the trip.
Now, obviously, to support all this amazing action on the ground, the internal culture has to function smoothly too, especially at the General Assembly, or SIGA. Right now, let's be honest, there's a lot of well-documented frustration among member delegates. Country delegates will propose motions, but those motions end up getting withdrawn during the executive committee's vetting process, completely behind the scenes, before they ever even reach the SIGA floor. So delegates show up ready to debate substance, but they don't get to have those live discussions. The solution the Blue Paper presents is elegant and, frankly, long overdue. It introduces dedicated, non-binding discussion time right there at SIGA. This structure allows delegates to engage deeply with the actual substance and strategy of an issue long before any formal binding motion is drafted. It perfectly mirrors how effective national boards already operate, and it builds directly on the consultative voting practices Servas already uses. It ensures everyone gets a voice on the ideas themselves rather than getting bogged down in procedural paperwork. You know, whenever an 80-year-old organization evolves, you are going to face fears and resistance, right? The Blue Paper addresses this head-on with a lot of empathy. For longtime members worried about cultural resistance, it explicitly promises that traditional travel and hosting are going absolutely nowhere. This new stuff is purely complementary. To stop partner mission drift, peace alignment is a strict, non-negotiable criterion. And regarding political perception, everything is grounded in empirical, local, non-ideological practice. It is incredibly careful, considerate change management. So, the crucial point is, how do we actually know if all of this is working? Well, the authors didn't just write a nice philosophy paper here. They built a rigid framework for execution and assessment through 5-year key performance indicators. These are rapid-fire, highly measurable goals that will strictly define the Blue Paper's success over the next half-decade. And let me tell you, they are swinging for the fences with these numbers. Let's look at the targets. 200 plus. That is the massive, energetic goal for the human impact of the Peace Builders Academy. Within 5 years, the aim is to have 200 or more certified peace builder educators actively out there in the world, actively facilitating those grassroots homeschooling sessions. That's over 200 people creating real ripples of conflict resolution in living rooms and community spaces worldwide. 25. This is the ambitious target for the new organizational partnerships. In just 5 years, the goal is to establish 25 highly active SI social group partnerships. And remember, these aren't just casual handshake deals. These are 25 fully operational partnerships that pass that incredibly strict peace alignment criterion, actively hosting volunteers to do the work.
5. To really build global momentum, they want Peace Builder seminars fully operational across 5 different continents. And nestled inside this massive global expansion is this beautiful, highly specific pilot program, launching a microloan initiative in conjunction with a partner group that explicitly prioritizes women borrowers. Talk about a game changer. It takes the abstract concept of peace and turns it into tangible economic empowerment.
Let's move to and see how this builds a rock-solid case for evolution over disruption. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice that throughout this entire explainer, the core foundational structure of the organization hasn't been touched. Existing titles, like National Secretary, remain completely intact. The authors understand that jarring, disruptive change just makes people defensive. But when change feels like a logical next step, when it feels like a faithful return to the founder's original vision, people tend to look at it and say, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Ultimately, this document provides a brilliant structural framework, but the real, lasting impact, that relies entirely on the individual. The Blue Paper isn't promising that the organization is going to magically fix the world for us. It's inviting every single member to step up and embrace that active seeker identity. It leaves us with this incredible sense of personal responsibility. So, as we wrap up this explainer on the Servas Blue Paper 2026, the real question isn't about what the executives will do next. The question is, how will you bring peace into everyday life?